now call to order the regular meeting of the Millersville Planning Commission, Tuesday, May the 8th, 2018. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Mr. Secretary, would you do the roll, please?
Chairman Frank Fox.
Present.
Vice Chairman Larry Kenny.
Present.
Secretary Gregory. Present. Keith Bell.
He called to be excused.
Okay. Mr. Lee Smith. Here. Mr. Brent Aldrich.
Present.
This is Deborah Wayne.
Present.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Item number 4, disclosure of ex parte communications. Anyone want to talk about anything they've talked about, or make us aware of anything they've talked about that might be on the agenda that we're going to talk about tonight? No. All right. No ex parte communication. All right. We want to review the minutes of the March 13 meeting, which will be the March 13 minutes of the meeting. And those of you who were here, would you please review it and somebody favor us with a motion to approve? Mr. Petty moved. I will second. Mr. Gregory second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. Let's review the minutes, please, of April the 10th. Those of you who were present, those of you who are present, read it, and somebody favor us with a motion, please.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of April 10th, 2000.
Mr. Gregory moves, Mr. Aldridge second. All right, item 6. Public comments, 3 minutes per speaker for items on the agenda, Mr. Mayor. All right. Number 7, action items. We're going to look at minor subdivision plats. I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Ball.
Thank you. This project we've been dealing with for quite some time, actually going back for a year. And we seem to have found some resolution to work with the developer to bring the lots into, and I only printed 3, just larger ones, because I know the prints are small. But, in a nutshell, the lots, when they were originally platted, because of some of the extreme terrain out there, it made those lots difficult to build on, especially for larger houses. So this is the project that has had multiple homes built within different setbacks. I can't speak for why or how that happened, but it has. My position is that the developer platted this subdivision. He placed the constraints upon himself with the lot dimensions and the setbacks according to the plat and to our zoning regulations. And if he built inside of those setback lines or across the property lines, it's on him. The BZA, I mean, he can make a request to the BZA for a variance, but I could not recommend approval for that since it's a self-imposed hardship. So this was the best solution that we were able to come up with. Bottom line is he is losing 3 lots. He's combining 2, and then he's cutting a single lot from each of the other 2 portions so he can make larger lots that will allow him to build the same square footage homes on it, but with a different footprint and not be cutting up into the back of the hillside and or building into the setbacks and whatnot. So actually, as a side note, the developer is going to lose some money over it because he's going to build 3 less houses, but nevertheless, it's a good resolution for the encroachments and whatnot. And if you recall, the developer, the builder is actually going to have to move one of the homes. So that's what started the conversation, was that home was too large for any of the lots in the subdivision. And how do we deal with that? And that's when we started adjusting lot lines and came up with the agreement that he's just gonna have to lose some lots out there and make bigger lots. So he's gonna move one of the homes across the street onto one of these newer lots. So we worked with him and his surveyor to come up with these replats that gave him more room. Also, he's asking that we reduce the front setbacks from the standard 30 feet to 20 feet. And I'm not opposed to that, and here's why. The city has approved at least 3 other houses on the same street that are encroaching in that front 30-foot setback. So there are several houses on that street that are about 20 feet anyway. So at this point, what's the harm to have that reduced front setback? I did not want to go below 20 feet because the last thing I want are pickup trucks with the tail ends hanging out into the street or other problems with their driveways. So they asked for 15 and we compromised with the 20. So this is, in my opinion, the best solution for a very difficult situation to replat these 3 portions of the master subdivision and let the builder just get on with building. I'm happy to answer any questions. This has been a difficult situation to work through.
Let's get a motion first and a second, and then we'll discuss it. All in favor? Do I hear a motion to approve or disapprove this plan?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right. Mr. Petty moved.
Individually.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to have each of these 3 approved separately, if you don't mind, for the record, since they'll be signed individually.
All right,
That's all right.
A number 1. You redo your motion.
I withdraw my motion to make a new motion to approve them individually.
So we are specifically talking about A1.
201, correct?
A1, yeah, 200, 201, 202, 203.
Yeah.
Resulting lots 201, 202, 203.
You still have a second on that, please, ma'am?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, okay, thank you very much. All right, we have a motion and a second. Now, we have a motion and a second, let's have some discussion there. Preacher, you start.
It's Sunday morning.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner, start.
I don't have size idea what you just. So, I got a question. Is this what they are right now and this is what they're gonna be?
No, sir, it's the other way around.
Oh, okay. This is what they are now and this
That's
is
what
what
they
they're
are,
gonna be.
this is what's proposed.
Okay.
Yes. You can just make out the lines.
Yeah, I see
The
it.
old lines on there,
Uh-huh.
and then the new ones.
Okay.
The old lines are fainter, the new ones are bolder.
Mhm.
So you can see, and most of those lots before were in the neighborhood of about 10,000 square feet, but this is jumping them up to anywhere from 13 to 15,000 square feet. So, and we're increasing the fronts of them as well, which is really the goal here, is to make a wider lot that's easier to build on.
Everybody got the picture?
And we're gonna do
The purple is what, the purple is the
What it
original,
is.
that's what it is. No, go, yeah, there, put your hand up, right up at the top here.
Yeah.
203, 202, 201, and 200.
All right, that's original. That's what's
Yeah,
there now, right?
and then this is what it's going.
He's gonna do away completely
The
with
front page, the very first page.
201.
Yeah, he's just gonna shift the lines over.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
this
that's
one, this
just
one,
what's gonna be.
201 together. And then
So
part of this,
essentially,
part of this,
essentially, the new lot line will be
right,
here, and then,
right, just like this.
Yes, sir.
Got you covered.
and I guess I could have put better on there.
No, that's good. You know, I'm fit now.
And this becomes one lot, is my head, and then this here is to,
What is this? This is, those, what they.
I know this is, these existing
He's
houses,
doing away with this.
those are existing lots, they're vacant
they're
except
lots,
for,
there's nothing in here but lots.
well, except for two of
This is
them
all
at
they want to get it now. And he's dividing these.
lot 220 and 221 have homes on them, as they are right now.
Yeah, I see.
They're about 60% complete, yes. The house that is on lot, and forgive me, I want to pull that up real quick here. The house that's on lot 221 will be moved across the street to the new 203. They're literally gonna jack up the house and move it across the street.
Wow, that was my next question.
Yeah.
Wow.
The house that's on lot 220 today is only 4 feet from the side setback. So by combining these two lots, moving the one off of it, combining the two, it will bring that house into conformity, almost. He's gonna have to chop the garage off the front because the garage in the front is within 6 feet of the property line and not 30 feet. So he's gonna chop the garage off in the front and put it on the side. But he'll have plenty of room since he's combining the two lots. This was a really big oops. A really big oops.
His part or our part?
His. No, we don't assume any
Yeah.
responsibility
No, I
for
didn't think so, but I was
building.
making sure.
No.
And then
But we're trying to get, bottom line is the city really tries to work with our residents and our builders and developers. And this is, we could be like other communities and say, too bad, so sad, fix it.
Right.
I think this is a reasonable.
I mean, I agree with you, I was just making sure.
Mr. Gregory, are you clear?
We're voting here on lot 200, 203. So the existing, you say 201, 200, and 202, with the exception of 221 is gonna be 203.
Now, we're dropping lot 200 and realigning 201, 202, and 203.
If you look on the new plat, there's space on either side.
Yeah, but I'm looking at three things here, and I've got just one that shows me others.
here, Dave,
Trying to get my heel in the loop.
this is how we explain it.
Sometimes it takes a little longer.
This is how it's explained. You take this, you come like right here. Right here. See how you did that? Gonna do that right here. And he's gonna do that again right here. You're gonna have one,
Those are three we're
two,
talking
three,
about.
right?
Plus
And
this,
this one over here, you're just gonna make one.
that's what we're talking about.
You're gonna take this and put over here.
201. Yeah.
That's what we're talking about on this. I know what that is.
No, we're talking about
This,
This is
and this is the first one.
200, 201, 203.
This one right here is the first one.
Needs
Then
to
he's
get rid
gonna
of
come
200.
down here.
that.
That's how you.
Yeah, we're gonna get down there, we'll discuss that one. I got it, thank you. Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Smith, you're so quiet tonight. All right, are we ready for questions? All right. We have a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. All right, Madam Secretary, Madam. Motion passed, unanimous vote. Now, we're
Aye,
gonna-
aye.
Sir?
Aye, aye.
Aye, aye.
Aye, aye. Another similar situation, we're taking 5 lots and reducing it to 4. So they're readjusting the timeline. I would like that, please, yes.
Yeah, that's, 212. This is
We've
on,
already voted on the first.
I thought you wanted individual.
No, he's saying individually like 1, 2, and 3, like I,
1,
and
2,
then
and 3.
2, and then 3, not 201,
Not
202.
each lot, no, that's not.
He's saying just each one,
now,
yeah,
in the second plat,
it's kind of the same thing.
Oh, yes.
okay,
Yes, so it's,
all right, do we have a motion to approve this replat of, action item A, 2, lots 212, 213, 214, 215, and 216?
Is that again?
It's, yes.
Yes, sir, yes. And again, it's a pretty steep hillside right behind. And in fact, it's beginning to slide in a couple of areas that were, well, it was a very wet spring, but, and so the builder's having some discussions with 2 of the property owners that are already there, that their backyard is being filled in naturally.
It's huge.
And it's coming down. I don't think it's gonna damage the houses, but it's making them, it's giving them smaller backyards.
It's rough on mowing.
Especially when
It's got, on the second one, if you look at the pink part, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots, and on the redo, there's only 3 lots.
Oh,
Four.
right here.
I can't afford.
1, 2,
Yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So basically, you're doing the same thing.
Oh, okay.
you see that diagram right there you have on top? That's how it is.
That's what it's doing, that's what it's gonna do, right?
One more,
One more, 4.
4.
With no house.
None of those have
None of these have houses.
Is everybody clear?
We had a motion.
Now, we don't have a motion. I'd like to entertain a motion on item A7, A2.
Make motion to approve 782.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, Mr. Gregory and Mr. Cole. Okay, any other questions?
Lots 212 through 216, gonna go down to 212 to 215.
Exactly.
And that's the reason for that is, the setbacks, side sets.
Yeah, and in this case, it's the hillside here, behind the lots.
That's the reason it's going from 30 to 20. Out front, when it comes in house, it's been moved. to 30 to 20.
Even with wider lots, with that steep hillside, and as difficult as it would be to terrace it, it's, the only way that they're gonna get built on is if we go with a smaller front setback. But like I mentioned earlier, there are already homes that were approved and CO'd on that street with 20-foot front setbacks that the city allowed to pass on. I can't explain why, but that was well before my time. So it's not gonna stick out like some other homes that we've seen that are gross encroachments.
The square footage that I see here will remain the same.
The square footage of,
Well, it's 14,000, but now 11,000 square foot. Is that old or fine?
that's the old size, the new lot would be larger.
Okay, that's old.
Any other questions?
Michael, you might be able to help me through the subdivision regulations. And we find it now where when you have when you start talking about topography and arrangement and things like that,
Yes.
should they even be approved?
I think now we're fixing an error that both the developer and perhaps the city are somewhat responsible for.
You're
The
saying
city
those
approved
homeowners,
this,
there's some over there now developing a problem,
there's some that would,
developing a problem with landslide, basically, I guess.
yes. But the city isn't responsible for knowing the terrain and the topography. Yet, the city did approve this back in 2007, this subdivision. And homes were built on it, on some of it. I'll tell you today, I couldn't recommend it simply by looking at it, and that's why with our subdivision plats now, our new plats, we require topography and elevation lines on them, so that we have an understanding as to, are these lots buildable? I can't find any evidence that that was followed back in 2007.
We just worried a lot of these variances that we are approving are less and payments to the city.
In this case, I think since we already have a subdivision that's mostly built, that this just helps build it out and complete it. And the city has incentive to have the builder finish it, so he can finish the roads, he can finish the curbs, he can finish the stormwater, be done with it, because he has been building this he's been working in this subdivision for 10 years. I would just like to get it finished, and I think this is a reasonable way to help the builder finish it. Because the only other option is he walks from it, and the bond that this planning commission reduced some time ago doesn't have enough funds if the city has to complete the subdivision, bottom line. So I'm trying to work with the developer to come up with a fair solution to fixing his problems so he can finish the subdivision and move on, bottom line.
Well, with this developer, knowing you had problems with fast build or whatever it is, I think the 20-foot minimum setback ought to be, that's it. Don't come in here with 19, 18.
Oh, no, he's agreeing to this, and
I
there is
really
no,
may be agreeing with it, but I wanted to make sure that whoever don't come and say, well, you know, I'm over a foot or something.
well, if it's an after-the-fact encroachment, he's fixing it. The BZA, the Board of Zoning Appeals, has already taken that position at the recommendation of the city's attorney.
All right.
Yes, we're holding fast to that. We have there's no path for them to build inside the setbacks now and get a pass on it.
All right, we have a motion and a second on item 7A2. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Record shows 7A2 passes.
7A3 is probably the simplest of them all. They're combining 2 lots into 1 lot. This is nice.
Two lots into one.
Oh, this, okay.
The simplest of them all.
Oh, okay, that.
Okay, we have the best for last, but I'll entertain a motion on 7A3, lots 220, 221, replat 2 lot 220. Can I have a motion, please, in a second?
make a motion to approve, A triple I. It is fine, right?
That's right.
They are.
That's right.
Wait a second.
I got one question.
Yeah, go right ahead, sir.
We went up there and looked at this one,
We did.
oh, this detention pond, without going up, the road there. They would rode in and rode up and it didn't look like a pond. I understand that the public record that's, belongs to the private individual and not to the subdivision or the developer to maintain. Or is it going to end up being the city's to maintain it?
I am currently investigating that situation, and here's what I have found so far. In 2007, the developer offered to create a homeowners association for this subdivision, and the city asked him not to. And I've reviewed the meeting minutes from the planning commission meeting in September of 2007. I need to take a look at October and also August, because there was some discussion on those meetings as well. For some reason, in '07, at the suggestion and recommendation of Mr. Leck, the city planner at the time, the city didn't approve a homeowners association. There were also extensive declaration of restrictions for the subdivision as well that were never accepted, executed, or recorded, that would have addressed stormwater and whatnot. The city also asked Mr. Stokes in his subdivision to have the abutting property owners of the stormwater pond and ditch to assume ownership and maintenance responsibilities of each, and not the developer and not the city. However, Mr. Stokes insists that the city at the meeting told him that they would help him maintain the stormwater system, even though it's on private property. There's not a stormwater easement, it is, forgive my forthness, it's sloppy. And I don't understand why the city and staff recommended it 10 years ago. I guess there just wasn't an understanding or sophistication to subdividing land and stormwater easements and other restrictions and dedications and whatnot. I can't speak to that. I need to go back and listen to the meeting and try to understand what was said and why. Because bottom line is, and we have some contradictions, some conflicts. In the subdivision regulations, Mr. Smith, it talks about the developer's responsibilities for maintaining the improvements until they're dedicated to the public. Obviously, the project is still under construction. My position is that the developer should be responsible for maintaining the project. That includes the roads, that includes the vacant lots, that includes the stormwater. However, it appears that the Planning Commission and staff agreed otherwise at least one meeting in 2007, that the private property owners would be responsible for it now or then, and that the city would assist with the maintenance. I'm not going to burden the city with that responsibility at this point until I know for sure that that is what the Planning Commission and staff agreed to. I have a difficult time agreeing that it's the city's responsibility when it may not be. It may not be in writing. It is not in the meeting minutes, but it may have been discussed at the meeting, so it may be on the recording. I need more information to cover that position. Mr. Stokes says it's not his responsibility.
Mr. Stokes put it in the first time.
He did install it, yes.
But the performance bond on it was dropped to what, $5,000?
$50,000. Again, it's a case where I'm just trying to get it wrapped up. I'm struggling with holding the private property owners responsible, although on the plat, it clearly says that each of the abutting property owners is responsible for the stormwater pond in the ditch.
Is that recorded at the county?
It is. So then it is. My struggle right now is, excuse me, the project is still under construction, and before an owner takes over responsibility, the project is usually completed.
Okay,
The
so
project is not done.
there's nothing built on each side of the retention pond right now.
Yes, there are homes on either
So
side.
then it's already recorded with the county.
It is recorded.
That
However,
they
our-
own that.
However, they own it, but the subdivision regulations say the developer is responsible until the project is complete.
Maybe, they can reclaim that, that's for him before, let him clean that up before he gets his plots rezoned.
What I'd like to do is hold up his building permits until he gets the stormwater cleaned up.
That's good, the detention pond is pretty rough,
Yes, it is.
pretty rough.
Can't drive it through.
That, or we can visit going after some of his performance bond, his surety bond.
I think it needs to be looked at.
It does indeed. But I need more information, I need more facts before I can take a position on that. I need to listen to the minutes, or to the meetings, to know exactly what was approved by the planning commission.
Thank you for your comments, gentlemen. Anybody on this side of the table have a question?
I'm good.
All right. We have a motion and a second on item 7A, triple I. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, like sign. Very short, that's saying that, vote please, ma'am. Next item, item 7B, rezone portions of 7541 Darby Road, map 118, parcel 3.05, from residential R1 to R3 and R5.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I prepared a graphic here to show you the surrounding area and what the different zoning classes are right now there. If you recall, well, actually, no, you all didn't do this because it went to the board of zoning appeals, that this interesting hook-shaped parcel made it very difficult to build on the rest of it. However, the owner is very resourceful and is filling a road in along the long skinny piece there to get to the back. So he is just completing a house in the front. He can create a 10,000 square foot lot in the front, which is the minimum that we need for residential R5. And then he's asking to run with R3 in the back and then eventually subdivide 2 more lots off of the parcel to build a total of 3 homes on this 5-acre parcel. But before we can subdivide it, we have to rezone it, because our codes prohibits subdivisions that are non-conforming. So we have to back into the rezoning process. It actually, this guy's making lemonade out of lemons. He looked at this and here, let me give you a little history. There used to be a really dilapidated single wide trailer on this parcel that was right up against the road, and it was a regular code enforcement issue. There are others out there similarly that we're getting through them, but any opportunity to remove single wide trailers from the city is very eager to work with those builders and developers. And in this case, we've got a beautiful home with amazing views to the south. I don't know if y'all have been up there to look at it, but I would love to wake up in the mornings to look out that one. But then he's filling in the section, that long skinny finger, he's filling in right now to create access to the back portion of that hook lot. And he'd like to create 2 new lots there, which, just as a side note, I don't have all of the exhibits prepared for the minor subdivision plat, but I'd like you all, I recommend making a recommendation to the city commission to rezone this to residential 5 in the front, residential 3 on the rest of it.
you very much, Mr. Carr. We have item 7, number C. I mean, B.
The CP.
Yeah, B zone portions. All right, I'd like to entertain a motion that we rezone for as far as discussion. R1 to R3 and R5 for lot map 118 parcel 3.05. Ms. Wade moves,
I second.
Mr. Petty seconds. Further discussion, please.
This road is going to get these 2 lots, is that gonna be on the standard?
It will be a private driveway. It will be a shared driveway. We are not taking that into our inventory. No, it will not be public.
I want to talk about it. I would not recommend talking about that. They're not here. Get that.
The dirt's like easier.
Yeah, dude. That soft dirt, you have a good landing, I guess, you know.
All right, Mr. Petty's remarks aside, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You still for it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Let the record show it passed by unanimous vote.
As long as we don't have to maintain the drive.
Mr. Chairman, let's either withdraw or continue item C, 7C. The exhibits weren't prepared and sent to me for this meeting. We'll get to it next month if that's all right with you.
Yeah, sure, it's fine. Let the record show
C.
item C was withdrawn. Since there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah. We don't have it.
All right. Now, we're down to item 8, and we were asked to review the subdivision regulations, minimum standards, and requirements. So what I'm gonna do to facilitate discussion is to ask any of the members, we'll start with Mr. Gregory, I guess. Is there anything that's in these subdivision regs that you'd like to comment on at this time, or that you have questions about?
Let me get myself a spot here.
And if you have a flashback, we remember the oration that you made at the approval of the subdivision relative to water. And which leads us to want to know if we might ought to either hold to it or do away with it. So, the water,
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
I can't find, I should have this place up. Fire hydrants would either, fire hydrant sidewalks, adequate water. And, we discussed it last meeting, I think.
You can find that in Article 4.
It's 4108, what's it, 108? I'm looking right now. Underground. That's certain.
No, that's sidewalks. 108 is sidewalks. That's what it is.
Yeah. There's
This
this,
was,
but I had this marked out, of course, I can find it now, but for discussion for this evening, I did read in here that it is a requirement, an ordinance made by the city. to have fire hydrants. And if we're gonna go forward with that, we can do so this evening or discuss it later, but there's some circumstances, which was our last one we had over at, West, what's the name of it there? Some kind of farm subdivision up there. That's a farm, that's a farm, and it wasn't required. And I think the reason was that it wasn't required. But under circumstances, there are places in our city that we don't have water. And there are places that we do. And we heard at a meeting last night that there may be some rather large developments coming in on Mountain Road, in which we do have water, and we do have all infrastructure required for the amount of building that may go on there. But as far as, since we're talking about some water and some sidewalks, I like to continue the discussion if we could, Mr. Chairman, and somehow or another get into a situation or find out an answer to water tower, West Bethel. There has been some discussion, I know we have discussed it, and there has been some information given to me, but I can't rely upon it, so I'm not gonna bring it to you. But we need to get into a situation where we can develop all of our city and not be stuck in the rut with what we got now in certain areas of our city. So I don't know how to go about it. I'll have to rely on Mr. Barr or Mr. Chairman or somebody here to figure out how we can get started and get a grant or get the monies or get somebody interested in it in town if they're in West Bethel, that we can get some water service ahead of town. That will create development, and it'll make it a whole lot easier on us if we have some water. Mr. Barr, if we can get this somehow started.
Here's where we are, if I can just try to answer the core question. Robertson County's Joint Economic and Community Development Agency funded the Greater National Regional Council to study the West Bethel Road corridor for utilities and other public improvements. And that was to determine the shortfall, to identify the lack of utilities, as well as the potential development opportunities that could drive the need for utilities. Part of that study also looks at commercial and industrial lands, not just residential, but commercial and industrial lands for maximum commercial and industrial development. Jobs, facilities, tax base. Then secondly, they looked at residential development opportunities as well. But primarily, the study is to show the benefits of bringing water to that area, what it means for job creation and tax base, and then use that study to go to the state or even the county or the cities to ask for assistance, either funding or loans to help contribute to White House Utility District to put more pipe in the ground and more water in those pipes. Because right now, there's not enough of either. Even if we had pipes in the ground today, there's not enough water to get to fill those pipes. So we're talking a pretty big project. And in fact, White House Utility District has suggested a price tag as high as $7 million to supply adequate water for the entire West Bethel Road corridor, from the interstate to the racetrack. The city has helped put ourselves in a better position for this study by rezoning some of those properties out there by the racetrack to light industrial and other commercial and higher intensity uses. That helps us a lot. Unfortunately, the property owners, that was their desire too, because it makes their property more valuable. But it actually makes the study more, it makes it clearer the need. It makes a greater need. So that was a good thing. Once that study is wrapped up, and I know I've been talking about it for probably 6 months now, we've already had community meetings over it, we've hashed it and hashed it. It's been delayed, unfortunately. It should be close to being complete. As soon as it is, I'll get it, bring it to you all. I'll be happy to share a copy with you. What we'll then do is go out and try and look for funding. At some point, the city may have to contribute, and if that's the case, then if the city's going to take on debt, I would recommend that we have a plan for paying that debt back. That could include a special taxing district for that area out there, so that as those users come onto the system, they're paying our debt that we incurred. Because I have a real hard time placing that burden on all the citizens of the city to pay for water for the folks that live up there or the businesses up there. That being said, that's a city commission opinion, so I can't speak to that, but that's my position on that. There are some different revenue, or different avenues that we can pursue in that, but we've got to get the study first. And then we'll go out to the State Economic and Community Development Agency, see if we can get some funding from them, and maybe White House, White House Utility District has already committed to about $1.25 million. Greenbrier uses, no, I'm sorry, Ridgetop uses some of that water. Greenbrier buys their water from Springfield. Ridgetop is a user of it as well. In Robertson County, they have a lot of unincorporated areas out there that would benefit from having water, especially for fire protection. Because as it has since been discovered, while there may be hydrants out there on that west side, they're few and far between, and you can't draft from them, if you understand it. And I'm a layperson with fire, but evidently they can only be used to fill, and at that, they may not even be enough to fill at any kind of decent rate. So a lot of work to be done, including probably at least one tower, if not 2 water towers, to provide enough pressure out there. But as Commissioner Gregory mentioned, East Bethel is in a much better position. And there are a couple of properties along East Bethel that are primed for development. And one of them is in play. I can't share a whole lot of information, but one of the parcels there is in play by a national developer, and they seriously, well, right now we're looking at about 450 residential units, about 250,000 square feet of commercial. So, and I really like the commercial part, because that is good property tax base, and it is even better sales tax for the city. But that's where we stand right now for the water on the west side. But not all of the developments that are occurring in the city are just on the west side. So we have other areas that may be developed, and
The other areas, are they substantial that we don't have to?
they appear to be adequately supplied, yes.
That's good. That's good.
Yes.
May I continue?
Yes, sir.
I read this 2 times before I got here, and I want to go over it. I read it here several times that it's everything I've read here, the planning commission has the authority to change, and it's at any time. And so what my thinking is when I read this was that if we take this as written this evening and vote it in as written, the planning commission has the ability to change this per development. In other words, what it says here, is sidewalks. It says fire hydrants, but fire hydrants I agree, but sidewalks, when you get into a certain development situation, which Mr. Barr will bring to us, I'm sure, that we may have to use just half street, one side of the street versus 2. So is that considered, y'all consider that pretty good policy for us? Sir? But that's okay. You're right. Mr. Smith, that's okay. They can ask anything they want, but we have the authority. I hear my understanding that whether we get it to them or not. But we can't do it unless we see. Quantify it across. And I like concrete curves. I like everything I've read in here. I like the width of the sidewalks. There's an option there as well. And also there's an option of how far to go from the house to a street curve between the sidewalks. And I like that. I don't know about, this is where I got stuff on that here. The rest of it is mostly lawyer stuff, I thought. Then you had to be sort of a lawyer to figure out some of this. It's pretty good. It's pretty
He
good.
ain't here.
We don't need it. We're doing all right. Mr. Chairman, that's what I was going to mention. And I appreciate you giving me time.
Sure, I understand, and I think as Mr. Barr said earlier, we need to review them, and if we're not gonna abide by these, let's vote to delete them, or let's let them stand as presented. Now, let them stand as presented. Who else wants to comment? Mr. Smith, I know you do.
Probably should.
Should?
Probably should not.
Well, you can, well, you're on the board.
So if we approve these now,
They're already
if
approved.
we keep them or don't change anything or delete anything, in any situation, it's still up to us, right? I mean, I'm saying like, if somebody comes to us and says this, well, that's not, I don't know what I'm looking for, possible in that situation, that we can approve something different, correct?
It is,
I'm
yes, you
saying-
could, but the real goal that I'm looking for here is your direction to me I'm the reviewer, I'm the intaker, I prepare it all. I work with the developers up front and the builders up front to try and come up with a package that I believe would satisfy you. If y'all want me to hold to the subdivision regs that we have it as today, then tell me that. If you wanna give wiggle room to the developers, then tell me that. And you need to tell me how much wiggle room that y'all wanna give. Because it is at your prerogative. This is up to you. You're the board who approves these projects, and you're the board who can grant the variances to exclude the minimum requirements.
Well, I'm the chairman, and I must reserve comment, but I cannot resist, Mr. Smith, but I refuse to micromanage. I'm just not gonna get into that. I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to manage your work.
Well, I'm not asking for a micromanagement kind of opinion, I'm asking for a broader sense of, do you want me to hold to this when the developers come in and they say, well, we really don't, we can't afford the sidewalks, so we wanna pass on that. I can suggest to them, that's gonna be a hard sell to this planning commission, you may not wanna go down that road. Or do you want me to say, well, you're more than welcome to bring it to the planning commission and ask.
No, I'm against that. If it's in black
If
and
it's
white,
in
then
here,
that's what we need
If
to
it's
go
in
by.
here, then I'll hold to it, and that's just what I'm asking
That's the
for.
way I feel. If it's black and white, then I'll do it.
Are you having nightmares about what we did
All the time,
90 days ago, 60 days ago?
still.
Okay. If that's your problem, I think that you might as well turn over and take a melatonin and go back to sleep. Because I don't think that,
I don't wanna go down that road again.
and I
That
don't want to
was
see,
really
I don't want to
uncomfortable
see,
and difficult.
I don't want to see Brother Gregory go off on another oration like he did either. So I think we ought to stick to it, and I know Mr. Smith wants us to stick to the letter.
I had to take how much you feel. I do.
I just,
I'd like that direction from.
I don't
us.
understand. I mean,
Don't understand which.
well, the South Williams, I guess is what we're talking about, you know. and
We're talking about that bad dream he had about 60 days ago.
Well, I'm just confused, you know, and we had a city manager that approved it, that should have approved it, it's no longer here. The mayor stood up in support of it, that we ought to do what the city said we do. And he got approved, even though the fire chief said there's not enough water suppression for,
That ain't what the fire chief said.
I'm sorry,
That ain't what the fire chief said.
said there was not enough to.
He's out back, you can ask him. That ain't what he said.
He got up to make that statement. Because it was 11 minutes to go get the water. Is that correct? But if we had water hydrants and had enough water there, he could have used that, correct?
He said that he could provide fire service to that subdivision, is what he said.
And how he would do it,
That's what he said he could.
right? Is that true?
He said he could provide fire service to that subdivision.
I understand, he said that, and it would take 11 minutes round trip in good conditions. Is that true? Okay, but if we had the water,
You ain't got any water. They don't factor into it.
I think it does. I think it does.
So you're saying we can't protect the houses that don't have fire plugs in the city?
I am saying that we could be looking at some changes in some insurance rates for the city for every individual in this city. And I just, you know, Brandon said that he could not recommend it in that meeting. Now, do you agree with me or disagree with me?
I know what Brandon told me.
Brandon in the meeting said he could get it in 11 minutes. It's in this package tonight. But he could not support it. His recommendation was to not approve it. And when you have a fire chief tell you that, that's the profession.
That's what he told me.
I'm sorry, whatever he tells you, that's what is in him. So,
And this was preliminarily approved by the previous fire chief, without running those scenarios that Brandon ran.
and it was, what, basically approved 15 years ago too. You know, but do we need to say, well, since they did it 15 years ago, we'll go with it? Times have changed a lot. I guess,
I don't think that we would approve a similar scenario were it brought today. I don't think it would be approved today. I don't think we would. I don't see that.
We're actually gonna have not a similar scenario, but a scenario come forward for a townhome project, that there is not enough water to install a fire plug. However, the developer has come up with an option of installing a small supplemental water tower of about 30 to 40,000 gallons. And that would keep enough water on site to be able to supply the engines and be able to shuttle the water back and forth if they need to get to the buildings and whatnot. So we're working on alternatives that would satisfy the chief. And those alternatives will not, they don't hold to the letter of the code here. But when it comes to fire, I think that's a slightly different conversation, because I don't know, our code, I don't think can address every situation. And I would recommend taking suggestions from the fire chief on options for that. Because in this case, we've come up with a different plan that would satisfy him. And while there won't be fire hydrants within 500 feet of each unit, there will be water on site. So it's a workaround, but it doesn't meet the minimum standard of the code. And that's where we kind of struggle with, do we interpret the code by the letter, or do we try to find reasonable compromises?
right.
When it comes to something like roadway widths and sidewalks, that's not so critical. And I don't know if we should be going there on adjusting roadway widths and requirement for sidewalks. That it is what it is in the code for that. But for fire protection, I think there's some wiggle room. And if the fire chief recommends a program or a system that's different and alternative, then simply our code or rather the subdivision regulations are almost kind of not antiquated, but they don't allow for options.
I think they're a base,
Okay.
Yes,
that's what I'd like to see them be.
yes,
And then, you know, this developer's come up with something else.
yes.
And then him and you and Brandon get together. Now we're getting a solution.
But
We don't just have a problem, we're getting a solution.
And we're gonna bring that to you because y'all are the ones that have to bless that.
Right, but I don't want it so far black and white, we never get to see that.
Right,
So,
yes.
so that's the only downside of saying, if it's not like this, don't even come to it. You know, I think with this, I mean, there's some heads thinking on this stuff. That's what we need. You know, thinking outside the box, they call it. You know?
Now, maybe I'll give you even on sidewalks. One of the large developments that's looking at the city right now, instead of sidewalks in front of each of the homes or lots, they're talking about recreational paths around the boundary of the overall project.
That's
We're
what
talking
people are
about
like.
10, 12, the White House is a prime example of their greenway. They're proposing a greenway as an alternative to the minimum standards of the sidewalk in.
I'd like to see it where it's brought to a planning commission and says, look, this is what the rules says or our code says. But we've got a solution possible to look at, like that. That's what people are doing now, these walking paths. They're building all over the country. They're not necessarily wanting the concrete front of the house, they don't like to jog it. Says it hurts their feet, they want to jog on the road, you know, but they're using the paths.
Well, the last thing I want is someone to come in and say, I'm just not interested in doing sidewalks or paths or anything.
So I'm not coming,
Well,
I'm not even gonna talk to it.
And then in that case, I'll say, well, you know what, maybe you should look at a different city. This is the discussion I'm glad we're having, because I need to know that you agree with the direction I'm heading.
I agree with it.
So I agree with it.
I'm very comfortable.
Good, okay.
Then we can get a motion to make this for him, instead of, or you gonna leave it like it is, you know, accept it just like it is, like it's written.
This is just kind of a consent instruction.
Okay.
We'll look at it as that. We don't need to get carried away with it. Because we're not changing anything. No. But thank you for your opinions.
Ms. Wade, you didn't say anything.
Yes, you did.
Did she say something? You said it softly, that's what she did. Would you like to express yourself?
Well, what I'm thinking is we talked about the options, with this. Is there something, can you amend this and put that in there where we have the option in the black and white?
My experience in other communities has been that you have your minimum standards for your straightforward subdivision.
Okay,
Then you have what you call like a planned unit development, PUD, or some other title that you want to call it. And essentially what that does is it is a negotiated agreement, a development agreement with the builder or the developer for all those standards if they're out of the box. So what I would like to see moving forward is you either hold all of this or we draft a pretty complicated document that gives them, the developers, special rights and permissions and approvals that is a standalone document. What's going to need to happen with that, though, is the planning commission is going to have to review it, accept it, and then recommend it to the city commission, because the planning commission, in my opinion, doesn't have the authority to enter into agreements like this with the developer. It has to be the city commission, and the mayor has to sign.
We already have those in our subdivision regulations, don't we?
We have them separately in our zoning ordinance.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yes. And they're not easy to follow, unfortunately. And that's one of the items that we were going to address when we rewrite the zoning ordinance. Is to make it, because the language in there is 20 years old. And it, in a lot of cases, doesn't apply to development scenarios today.
All right.
But you will see those projects come through. You'll be the first ones to see it. And then if they do have to get carried on to the city commission, then that will be the process.
Okay. All right, we have scratched Mr. Carr's itch a little bit. We hope to make more progress as time goes along.
May I say something?
Yes, sir.
Did we not vote to change our road widths from 20 to 25? I mean, I'm trying to get that in my mind, and I didn't look for that in here, the reason I'm asking you, I want to make sure.
They are in here. They are in,
I did look.
I believe they're in 103. So page 8 and 9.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah.
Forward, I believe it is.
Page 8, they begin.
then we went to the rail, and got it there, and they not even
I thought it was 25 feet. We widened roads, it used to be 20.
It is 20 in a minor for a minor class road. A collector is 22 and an arterial is 24.
Is that what we voted, if we changed something?
We discussed it,
We did discuss it.
yes, and in the case of with the Bethel Farms, and we've also talked about it otherwise too. That's a change that I could support, going to a minimum roadway width greater than 20 and 22 feet. I think what we need to look at it is maybe in the types of development, have the narrower roadways. If they're larger lots and you don't have people parking on the street, then that's the difference. Like say if they're 3 acre or 2.5 acre more lots, chances are people aren't gonna be parking on the streets. But if they're the R4, the R5, you know, the half acre, the quarter acre lots out there in those subdivisions, I think we need to understand that there's going to be parking in the roads. And chances are on both sides. 20 feet is not going to be enough to get our first responders through if the people park on either side.
That's a minor subdivision, 20. Right?
This could be any subdivision, but typically minor subdivisions don't have public improvements. So 5 or fewer lots without public improvements are minor subdivisions, otherwise they're major subdivisions.
The subdivisions that we have.
Now, I'm sorry, I see where, the title minor, collector, and arterial is the class of roadway. That's by the number of trips on the road. How many cars drive that road each day is what, and also the connectivity of the roads. A minor would be a cul-de-sac road. A collector road would be with multiple roads connecting to it, then exiting out to an arterial. And really, we only have 2 arterials in the city, and that's Louisville Highway and Bethel Road.
Okay. Well, the reason I brought the point up, we had a place in our city you can't get, at nighttime, everybody's home asleep, fire agents can't get down through there. I don't think so, it was rough time. You can't turn around.
Would you like to make a motion to change the roadway widths?
I would, but I need to know the correct footage that would be substantial for our newer subdivision, whether they be collected, minor arrows. We need, I want to set this up, we'll have a road to get our ambulances and our fire place in there and have a way to get to our people or something.
You can get the police department to start enforcing the parking ordinance over there.
If we got parking ordinances that have been broken.
We have them on the books today. They're a minimum of $50 fine.
Is it still 18 inches on the curb or 12 inches
12.
on the curb?
12, with the wheels turned and et cetera, et cetera. We have that because we're having issues elsewhere that we've looked into that recently. With all due respect, do you really want your officers out there writing parking tickets, or do you want them out there for the speeders and the drugs and whatever else?
What's been done, so tonight I'm looking to change this for the next ones, our newer ones coming in. We're doing stuff, we're trying to correct stuff that happened 16 years ago. This border right here is, it all started with that subdivision up here. It started in 2006. Here we are, just finishing that a few months ago. So we're trying to clean up what was messed up, so we're trying to regroup and get this right here is a good start, Mr. Barr, thank you. This would be a good start, but I wouldn't mind changing the road.
Well, fortunately, the folks, the gentleman with Bethel Farms agreed to go 24s. Even though in 07, the planning commission agreed as narrow as, I think, 18.
Wow. But let the board know, I did do this after that meeting. I went to the builder, and I had his drawing like this. I took a pen and drove one side sideways.
minutes that you had a conversation with him. What were the results?
He just took it.
Okay.
That's all I could ask him, because everything was already done, so. He was trying to get one side, the south side, was, whichever way that thing's facing. One nearest the road. Just like that. He was building this way. That was just, there wasn't no agreements, there wasn't nothing. Other than if you could, but what would be a good roadside for?
You did cover it here.
I don't know. We all want to do this tonight, you want to wait to do it another time.
Do what?
Widen some of the roads we have, that's what's written in this.
We need an engineer. I don't
I
know
know
what
that's
a road
what
should
Tom
be.
said, but I don't know if this was everything you knew. That'd take a lot of time.
But how do we determine when we don't know exactly what, you know, what the flow is gonna be?
It'd be like a week.
How long we had to look at that?
I'm with you, I wanna see and make sure everything is correct. And I want, especially on the fire department. But how do we determine that? Not I, but we determine that.
My
We
thing,
don't, you know,
my
like
thing
that one boy, he's already got, he agreeing, or almost agreeing to the 24 foot. He done said he would.
Yeah,
Okay.
he did.
Now, but how do we go back? It's gonna be at our expense if we do all that.
Well, I think what we're gonna have to watch is when we have the subdivision. Not necessarily the subdivision, but how you get out of the subdivision into the subdivision. What are those like? Can you handle the traffic?
Yeah.
That's a very small road.
This young man's even talked about up there on Bethel Farms, to put in a turn lane into
That's what.
Bethel Road, like, you know, that's almost like a three car width right there at the entrance, you know.
Yeah.
So, but that's a great model, in my opinion. That would be a great model to tell these other guys that's gonna come in here as far as residential. Now, you need to, you know, step up, look at this. And if you want to put his model in there for the future, I'm all for it.
Well, let me throw this at you. Residential public way, minor is 20, collector is 22. Now, what is a minor of 20 feet?
Of what?
Minor. It says minor.
Minor is the class of road.
That's
That's,
over there.
yes.
And,
Those are minor.
Cimarron.
Yeah, Cimarron, North Point, even Willow
That's
Creek.
minor.
Quailwood would be considered, that's a minor road,
Yeah,
Sassafras.
I've been on those roads.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Here.
I could hardly get my truck through over there today, and they were construction people and some regular people living there.
Yeah, we're not enforcing the 12-inch law here, so let's forget about that, but why not take it 20, maybe 24 on these type?
In the future.
In the future, I'm not talking about changing nothing, we can't do that, but in the future, set this up, and this would be what we're gonna do, we're agreeing that tonight, we're agreeing to do this right here. We're gonna do it, we're gonna have the subdivision regulation, minimum standards of what we're agreeing to, and requirements, so.
You know, another standard that would be helpful with addressing the roadway width and the parking is that we begin requiring 2-car spot driveways. Or in even some cases, there are some communities that require garages on the homes with at least 1 or 2 bay driveways. If you have at least a 2-bay driveway, then hopefully you've got at least 2 cars parked on there.
You gotta set the setback line.
Well, the setback isn't all that critical when it comes to pavement for parking.
I'm talking about if you've done the setback, you have a double driveway.
That's another option too, yes.
More parking places.
Indeed.
On all the roads.
Indeed, yes, yes.
Other than the visitors.
Or parties or whatever
Yeah.
they have. But that's unusual. That's not an everyday, every night occurrence. Yes.
I can go 20.
Well, I would like for us to get this 20 minutes after 6. We've been here long enough. I'd like to say that we have given Mr. Bar something to think about and see if he will appease our desires, scratch our itch, and come up with something real resourceful at the next meeting after he's had time to do the engineering thing. What do you think?
I agree.
Thank you. All right. Item number 9, Development Services Department report. There's nothing on A. Is there anything about B that needs to be stated, Mr. Barr?
We have prepared a job description for a new building inspector and building and codes official. It was conceptually approved last night at the City Commission workshop. We'll be placing that for advertisement, getting ourselves a full-time building inspector who will also be responsible for oversight of codes enforcement as well as stormwater management, probably some floodplain administration, just a real general help. So we're looking to get that posted by the weekend and have hopefully a candidate in place by mid-July is what we're shooting for. So y'all know of any certified building inspectors who also want some extra responsibility, send them our way. And we'd be glad to talk to them. The emphasis is going to be on residential inspections, residential building, mechanical and plumbing. That's the bulk of our building permitting right now. We like the other certifications for commercial to be attained within a year. So we can work with them on that. We're hopeful that we'll have something in place within the next 6 weeks is what we're shooting for on that. For the city manager, that position, looks like we've wrapped up that job description. It'll be posted by the end of this week. I'm encouraged that hopefully we'll have a short list by the end of this month and go to interviews in June and hopefully have a new city manager placed sometime in early to mid-July. So we're encouraged with that. Things are moving forward with the city. Busy. And I mentioned that there is that big development that's, I think they're a little beyond just kicking tires. My understanding is that there's probably a contract. So as that's moving forward, we'll figure out the best way to bring it to you all. Probably start with a conceptual plan. There may be some, there's going to be some rezoning required on the project. We'll figure out the best way to go about that. And then more than likely we'll be writing a pretty comprehensive development agreement that will lay out their development plan, and as long as it meets the city's minimum requirements and it's in the city's best interest, then I'm hopeful that we can get that rolling. It'll be the biggest project that the city's ever had. So the biggest single project. So with probably the greatest tax base. So I'm really excited to be working on that.
We mentioned it last night, would you mind explaining to the board about us surrendering the $1 million for the sidewalk?
Yeah, we had, we came to realize as I was getting up to speed on some of the projects that we have in play right now, that the city manager was responsible for, that some of the timelines just couldn't be held. And so we're looking at readjusting the sidewalk project that has the $1 million, that with an agreement with the state, we'll be returning that $1 million to the state, and then applying at the next funding round for $1.3 million or $1.4 million for that project. So it's going to delay the sidewalk project about a year. I'm waiting to hear back right now on whether the state and the MPO has awarded us the $714,000 that's to supplement that project. Because the overall project estimate right now is $2.2 million. That's at full build out. We don't know if we're going to hold to that number or not. Those numbers were created about 2 years ago. Construction costs have climbed, but it looks like at least initially we have some value engineering that we've looked at that may save some money. or possibly even downsize the project somewhat, instead of having the 12-foot path, maybe just do 2 5-foot paths, but we need to see what the minimum requirement is that the state are gonna hold over us on that. But the one good thing that it helps, and this was something that you were looking at earlier, is it helps defer some of the city's costs by about a year. So that helps us financially stretch things out a little bit, and that's really critical right now as we're working through the budget for next year.
Thank you very much. Anybody, item 10, does anybody have anything they'd like to comment on?
No.
Thank you. Item 11, public comments. Thank you all. Next planning meeting is June 12th, 2018. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Eddie, both. Stand adjourned.
Thank you all.
It's been a long day. It's been a wonderful day.
What about Jack? What about Jack?
You know,
What's good with it?
we was had that first meeting.
Say something about my
Here.